introduce themselves as part of the panel as well. And then, do you want me to? You can just ask. Okay, and the questions are.
Hello to everyone. I'm Criseida Navarro. I'm the program chair for the Masters in Planning program at the University of Puerto Rico. Very excited to be here with you. And also being able to share this panel with these faculty members. All of us share a similar experience that at some point in our careers we've been part of an admissions committee for graduate programs in these areas or disciplines. So today we are looking to provide you with an insight on a better perspective of what the process of applying to these graduate programs could look like, and also for you to have some hints as to what the members of these committees are looking for. Before we start, my job will be to manage time to make sure that you guys have time to ask questions to our panelists. So I will ask everyone here to introduce themselves briefly, and their affiliation, research interests, and also relevant projects that you're working on that could become opportunities for some of these students.
Okay. Well, welcome, or howdy is what we say here. We also do gig'em, which is, I'm not going to explain what that means, but when people put their thumbs up, that's what they're doing. So my name is Shannon Van Zandt. I am a professor of landscape architecture and urban planning. My background is in urban planning, although I do have a degree in architecture as well, but my master's and PhD are in urban planning, and I teach primarily in the Master of Urban Planning and the PhD in Urban and Regional Science programs. I teach the core courses in both of those programs. I was also program coordinator for both of those programs at different times during I've been here for 21 years. So I've spent quite a bit of time with the programs. And probably can tell you almost anything about any of the programs in landscape architecture and urban planning. My research area is at the intersection of affordable housing and disaster recovery. So I'm actually serve as director of our Center for Housing and Urban Development, where I lead projects on Hispanic housing studies and on a lot of things that cross over with our Hazard Reduction and Recovery Center, where I'm also a senior fellow, looking at mandatory buyouts as a form of climate adaptation, also disaster recovery after one of the many hurricanes that has struck the Texas coast. Primarily, I look at Texas communities, but I also do research in other parts of the country. Although I only do domestic work so far, at least. I may go international at some point, but I haven't yet. So that's my introduction. Yeah.
Thank you, Shannon. Hello, my name is Ahmed. I'm associate professor of architecture and an international student myself. Came here to the US to do my master's 25 years ago. I teach in the graduate and undergrad program, design studios and building materials and assemblies classes. I also direct a research lab. It's called the Resource-Based Design Research Lab. And primarily we look at the idea of the circular economy changing or taking material that's left over from the industry and transforming it into building systems and components. Probably tomorrow in your tour, you might see some of the things that we have done here around campus. And yeah, and I've held also administrative positions before. I was the associate department head and the program director for the Master of Architecture. So yeah, looking forward to know more about you and get more from these landscape architecture interested work.
Hi, I'm Dongying. I was also an international student myself. I am an associate professor in landscape architecture and urban planning. So I primarily teach in the landscape architecture programs, but I also serve on the committee of the PhD in urban and regional science. I also serve as the associate department head for landscape architecture and urban planning. My research, I focus on environmental health and environmental behavior, looking at how environmental planning and design can play a positive role in shaping people's behavior and improving community and public health.
Great. To start the discussion, the first question that we must ask ourselves is how these candidates will introduce themselves with regards to how they chose the field for graduate school. What would you advise them with regards to that sales pitch? How would they build that portrait of who they are to catch the interest of the professors in the program?
Do you want us to answer all of them at once, or each in a row, or go across and answer, do the first one and then the second one?
I think all of you could address that question,
Okay.
and at the end, you can have students as.
Okay. So I'll start with how I got into this area. So I mentioned that I had an architecture degree. So my undergraduate degree is in environmental design from this college. So from Ahmed's department was my undergraduate degree. And when I even started in the Master of Science in Architecture. That was my first year when I went into graduate school. But I learned about myself that I was really more interested in the people and how they experience the space than of the building as a designed object. And that led me, I didn't know about urban planning at that time. And I find that that's true of a lot of undergraduate students, is that they haven't been exposed to urban planning, sometimes until they're already in a graduate program. And that was the case for me, and it has been for many others. And so urban planning was a place that I could really focus on the social impacts of the built environment. And in particular, over time, I've become increasingly passionate about equity issues related to the built environment and how our neighborhood and the built environment shape our opportunities and our access to opportunities within urban and rural areas.
Yeah, it's funny, the story that you mentioned, Shannon, about you were in the Master of Science first. I had a similar thing. So when I came to the US, I did my undergrad in Egypt in the University of Alexandria. And I worked there for a little bit and then decided to come for a Master of Architecture at Virginia Tech. It's a very similar university, but smaller in Southwest Virginia. And so I applied to the School of Architecture, to the Master of Science, thinking that there would be design studios and be working on projects. And so I signed up. I signed up in the courses. I showed up in the first course. I think it was about project management, and it was a not evening course even. So I'm sitting, and professor is talking about how to make the building on budget, under, time, all those things. And I said, where is design? So the next morning I went to talk to the department head. And it turned out that this was in the Department of Building Construction. So I said, but I'm interested in design. So he said, just have to walk across this plaza and go to the other building for the School of Architecture. And I made that change to the Master of Architecture program, and it was, I'm very glad that I made that change because, again, I'm interested about design, architectural design in particular, but design in general as well. I'm also passionate about building material and always questioning, why do we build the way that we build? Like how things are made the way that they are made, and therefore just challenging this. I grew up My late father used to sell hardware tools like, imagine like a mini Lowe's or Home Depot. And after school, this is where I would play, you know, in this little store. So I would use these tools and make things. And this is perhaps why I am passionate about building materials, about building construction and methods, and assembly, you know, how to put a building together. And recently with this idea of, you know, the material resources being depleted, you know, so how can we basically reuse some of these waste streams that comes from the industry in using it in buildings? And so everything comes together. I never planned, by the way, that this would be my research topic or agenda or whatever. But it seems like when you are passionate about specific thing, you know, related to architecture, urban planning, or landscape architecture, or even construction sites, keep your eyes always, you know, open for this opportunity about, you know, how to create a symbiosis between things together, and eventually things will fall in place. You're here to study graduate studies, and definitely this will shape with your committee, with your peers, with everything around you.
So I really like landscape architecture. I have a bachelor and master and a PhD in landscape architecture, because I really like the that it is kind of the intersection of art, like creative kind of work, but also like science. So you can like really delve into almost any field, you know, like looking at soil, looking at climate. If you're interested in kind of social science, you know, looking at you know, like different community groups. If you're interested in psychology, and you can combine all of these information together when you come up with landscape or environmental design projects. I also really like it because it's more grounded than many I think this can be true for all of our disciplines, but compared to some other disciplines, we are more connected or grounded in the everyday places that are meaningful to people, and also grounded in like communities, connected with communities, and we can go there and make an impact or help the communities with the type of work that we do. So when I applied to my PhD program, I was really interested in psychology of people, like environmental psychology, like what kind of places really make people feel good, what kind of places help child development. So I did my PhD in a lab, like a landscape architecture lab, but we pretty much did like an environmental psychology kind of work. So
I find it very interesting that all of you kind of touched on key words like intersection, connection, bridging. And I think even I share some of those experiences. If we look at that from the perspective now of a professor or a committee, admissions committee member, is that something that you are looking for? How should the student perhaps provide a strong statement that indicates that they have identified an interesting bridge of ideas?
Someone else want to go first? Okay. Can mix it up.
I think what we are looking for primarily is of course a sign of a passionate applicant, meaning that you know, you can use words to describe how passionate you are about the architecture, or how passionate you are about landscape architecture or urban planning. But I think if you can support this with an evidence to show exactly, you know, how are you passionate about this particular field? Maybe you traveled places and, and you have a collection of photos and things that you have, did that basically describe or support that passion. Or maybe you did work on projects, or you have a hobby or whatever, to build things or to, to design things. And this is where usually there is a component in addition to your writing. Sometimes we call it portfolio, right? Or sample of work, doesn't matter. But I think anything that can support what you put in text, and it's really, something that you have been engaged with, I think this would be very important. We look for that passionate and inquisitive student, and someone wants to, of course, change the world. So that's why they come here. But yeah, definitely, beyond the text, any artifacts that support your writing would be valuable.
I think that's a great answer. I'll build on it a little bit. I agree that for the programs that in urban planning, but whether it's the master's or the PhD in land development, I'll cover that too, since there's no one here for that. But we're looking for that passion for sure, and what you want out of it. Like, why are you coming for a graduate degree? What do you hope that this graduate degree will lead to? For professional students, we would assume it's going to be a profession in that or an allied field. For a doctoral program, we're really interested in what you want to do as a researcher, because that's what we're going to be training you to do. The PhD is a research degree. We're training you how to identify and execute a research project that is related to urban planning, broadly construed. Almost anything related to the built environment will do. We're also looking for fit, and in terms of how well can we deliver what you're looking for, right? So if you describe to us what you want out of it, we also on the admissions committee want to make sure that that's what we can provide for you. I will say sometimes we see, and because a lot of you are international students, I will say from an urban planning perspective, urban planning is quite different in the United States than it is in many other countries. And so I want to make sure that you know what you're getting into. Like, if you're coming into urban planning for an urban design degree, you might be disappointed in our particular program. That's not our forte. We do have a design program in the same department, but they're completely different degree programs. There are some opportunities for crossover, but not a lot, probably not as many as there could be. But I want to make sure that we're going to be able to provide you with what you're looking for. So I think passion and fit, and most of that is going to be expressed in your personal statement and through your work samples, like Dr. Ali mentioned. And we don't expect design work. Even if you have design work, we would love to see that, but it's not a critical element for an urban planning degree, because we're more of an applied social science and a policy related degree. We're going to tell you how to actually implement some of these changes and not necessarily design beautiful places. They do that really well in both of the other degrees. But we're more about policy and social science.
Yeah, so in the landscape architecture program, we do require like a statement, we require like a portfolio, and then transcripts and the other standard documents. So a lot of our students come from interdisciplinary backgrounds, so you don't have to have done design work, but if you've done like taken some photos, done some doodling, or like drawing, sketching of different things, some people did pottery, those can go into your portfolio. So we look for evidence that like you can connect whatever background or expertise that you have and bring that into our discipline to make us a more like a richer and more vibrant group of people. And then for the portfolio, we We don't necessarily require any technical skills, but we would like to see your curiosity about the outdoor built environment. Yeah, so for the MLA Master of Landscape Architecture program, we would like to see, like in the statement, if you can tell us like what type of design you're interested in and your career kind of goals. This slightly different from the urban planning program. We would not be matching you with a professor by the time you enter the program. After you've been in the program for 2 years, that's when we will ask you about your interest, and then you will have a chair for your final study.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that too, because it's something I should mention. Since so many of you are interested in the PhD in urban and regional science, one thing that's very important, and this is like an insider tip, so write it down. We do want to know who on our faculty you would be interested in working with. And so you want to research the people on the faculty and identify who, and maybe not just one, but 2 or 3 people that are working in areas that you're interested in working in. Because the PhD program is like an apprentice model where you will be paired with a faculty mentor who will work with you throughout your time there. Now, you'll be assigned a mentor to begin with. You may choose a different committee chair later on if you learn, something new, or you change direction, or that person's not available, or they leave, or something like that. But that relationship with your mentor and later with your graduate chair is critically important. It's really the most important thing you should be looking for in a PhD program, is that there's someone there who's doing the kind of work that you want to do and that is willing to work with you. You don't necessarily need to reach out to them ahead of time, and certainly don't ask them to commit to working with you, because they can't really do that right away. Our admissions process is a 2-stage process. The first process is where the whole committee looks at all of the applications and decides, are these students likely to be successful in our program? And are there potential faculty for them to mentor? And then they get distributed to our faculty, and the faculty member has to agree to work with them. Because we don't want to bring people in that don't have a mentor.
And I think like, that's what you meant by fit, right?
Yes,
That's like,
yes.
you need somebody who will be able to kind of shepherd you through the graduate process. And so if you're interested in something that none of the faculty can mentor you on, maybe, good or bad, it's just not maybe the best fit.
Right.
And so that's.
Yeah, there's also one thing regarding the statement, since we mentioned the statement before. If you are pursuing a master's degree, generally you are not expected to add anything new to the body of knowledge. But if you are pursuing a PhD, the general consensus, and this is not just here in A&M, but everywhere, is through your PhD studies, you are going to identify the gap in the knowledge, and you're gonna try to fill it. Meaning that you're gonna add something new to the body of knowledge. So in your statement, if you can just have the beginning of this, right? For those who are pursuing PhD, if you can just have the beginning thoughts of what is it that you want to add to this body of knowledge, that would be greatly beneficial, because we would know now that, yes, you have something already bothering you and you want to fill it with your.
With that in mind, the idea that they will be looking forward to creating knowledge, identifying a gap in the body of knowledge in a discipline, and comparing that with the issue of fit. There's also a possibility that a student will be a perfect match with one of the professors. Would you talk about what happens in those cases? If there's like a primary mentor and then it can be complemented by others, so that I just don't want them to be discouraged if they cannot find a perfect match right there.
Yeah, that's why the first year is basically you're scanning the faculty in your department and also beyond your department, right? So let's say you are in landscape architecture and urban planning. You also are encouraged to look at for all these faculty in the other departments as well, and maybe beyond the college as well. Read more about them. See what their expertise are, if it fits in your environment. And the first year is as much as possible. You're gonna have assigned to an advisor, but it's not your chair, just advising you on classes that you take or courses that you need to sign up for. And perhaps also guiding you to how to contact the other professors. But the first year is basically a scan to the expertise, learn more about them, and the best thing also is to go and talk to them. Go to talk to these professors when you see them in their offices or when you see them in events like this or so, and start to learn more about what they do. By the end of the first year, hopefully, now you're gonna have a better idea about who can chair your committee and who can serve as a members also.
And for graduate committees, so after you finish your coursework, you would be creating a graduate committee. This is true for actually all of the graduate degrees. And you'll have people from inside the department, so you'll have your committee chair and generally one other person from your department. And then you'll also be asked to have a faculty member from outside of your department. And so you're choosing people that complement what you want to do. No one person is going to meet all of your needs. Right? You may have someone whose research area is similar and they are often your chair, but then you may need another person who's a methodologist, who's really good at particular quantitative methods or particular qualitative methods that are gonna help you do the work that you want to do. Because there's all kinds of different ways to answer your research question, and we want you to have the tools to pick the right one. And so that may be quantitative, it may be qualitative. Generally in urban and regional science, we promote mixed methods where we're usually using both. And so we want you to have a little bit of all of that. But then you might also have someone from a department that's completely outside the college. It may be someone from architecture or construction, but it may also be someone from wildlife ecology or conservation and biology or the Bush School and in public policy or engineering or geography. I mean, there's all kinds of different places where people are working on some of the same issues, but from a different perspective. And having that outside perspective really is valuable because it challenges the way that we're thinking. You kind of want people to argue with each other a little bit. Not in a negative way, but in a constructive way to challenge you and to challenge the way that you're thinking about this issue so that you can identify the gaps, like you said, like what do we not know and how can we address that? Like how can we find out about what we don't know and why does it matter what we don't know? And then you put together a team. It's like your team of people that are going to help you complete that project.
I think that most of the students who pursue graduate studies usually have two big questions on their heads. One is how do I get in? We'll sort of address that. The other one is how do I pay for this? And as we were now introducing ourselves, there's also many of them who are international students, so funding is even more challenging. Could you talk about how those funding look like, both for the master level and the PhD level in your programs?
During the admission process, we do have some scholarships. Some of those are merit-based. Some of those might be both merit and need based. Typically we have a kind of deadline for you to apply for those scholarships as well as your admissions application. Your application will be considered for different types of scholarships. And then for the Master of Landscape Architecture program, we provide like certain scholarships will allow a student to get in-state tuition. That's like a half of the tuition, like saving in terms of the tuition compared to if you're out of state student. So you may not receive, like the scholarship amount doesn't look like it's a huge amount, but you are actually saving half of your tuition if you get that scholarship. Also in the program, our faculty members have a lot of like research grants. As graduate students, like we as faculty members, we're always looking for interested and talented students to join our research lab. So, but those opportunities, I guess with the exception of the PhD programs, for master programs, typically we don't offer those research assistantships right away, but once you come in and you know, you can seek to work with different professors. And then there are a certain number of teaching assistantships, and those are typically also given out once you are in the program. So for example, you take certain classes and perform really well in those classes, the next year you might be recruited by the department to be a teaching assistant for that class. So scholarships, teaching assistants, and research assistants.
Texas A&M is very generous in terms of helping students, by the way. I remember when I was a master's student in Virginia, like after finishing studio on Friday at 5 p.m., I would just drive 2 hours to work in a pizza restaurant the entire Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and then come back on Monday. And I show up in the studio and I don't have new work. And that was not good. But yeah, A&M generally is a very generous institution in terms of supporting graduate students. And as said, there's many opportunities on the university level. There are also scholarships. Some of them are what we call full ride, meaning that your entire 4 years of PhD is funded, supported. Those are very little, like on the top of the pyramid, basically. And the entire university compete and so based on how good your application package is, the departments recommend this to the college, and then the college recommend this to the university, and then you can get some of those, the full rights. But there is also the TA positions, and again, based on your performance in these classes, the RA, meaning that research assistant, and this can be with a grant that your advisor may be securing and hiring you. These are usually the best ones because usually these grants run for a certain amount of years, and if you perform well, that I'm going to be funded for this amount of years. The TA positions and the teaching, these are not, you're not going to get a contract for 4 years. This is a semester by semester based on need as well. Yeah, these are all the opportunities. There's always donors that they support the college in endowments and I remember I served on the scholarship committee for a few years before, and some years we didn't even find students to apply for these amount of money. So had hundreds of thousands of dollars that we were just looking for students to apply. All you need to do is to apply. So keep a calendar of the deadlines for sure. You need to know when these scholarships are, what are the requirements also. Some require you to write, some require you to, submit, your previous work or whatever. So always be aware of these opportunities.
The only thing I would add to that is just, in general, there are fewer scholarships or assistantships for master's programs than for the PhD program. Partly because we admit a lot more students to our professional programs than we do to the PhD programs. And we do generally try to guarantee funding for PhD students for a minimum of 3 years, hopefully 4 years. I will say about the grant funding, we are, in our department at least, have historically been a very well-funded external research grant program. We get a lot of external grant funding. However, a lot of that is no longer available in the current political climate. We've seen dramatic cuts to federal funding agencies, and that has had a big impact on us. Because most of us get funding from the National Science Foundation or the Environmental Protection Agency or the Department of Transportation or whatever, and they're not giving out grants right now. And so that has made us a little more cautious, and I think you'll find this at most PhD programs across the nation. I think we're actually less cautious than many. We're still admitting a kind of a full number of students, but we want to make sure that we can fund every student that we bring in for the PhD program, not for the master's program. But what Dr. Lee was noting too about the in-state tuition, I don't want you to underestimate that. It is a huge advantage for state universities in Texas. You're literally paying what an in-state student would pay, which we may only give you $1,000 scholarship, but that scholarship is going to entitle you to in-state tuition, which will save you about $12,000 a year, every year. And so it's a big deal. It's a lot more than it looks like, and it's not something that most states offer. So we're very fortunate. With our legislature has threatened to take it away many times, but they haven't yet. So we're going with it. Yeah.
And I would add to this also, if you had any previous experience with grant proposal writing in a company or anything,
Yes.
mention that in your package also, even if it was like for, little money, but it would be very exciting that if you approach your advisor or your chair or whatever, say, hey, I know how to write a grant proposal and let's do that. So this is also something that don't underestimate that you can't do this. No, you can do this with your advisor, with your chair.
You mentioned the entering class, the number of students who are admitted. How does that look like for masters versus PhD?
That's a good question. All of our programs get a different number of applications every year. And we have, especially, our programs are very different. So we have studio-based programs like the Master of Architecture or the Master of Landscape Architecture that have a pretty tight limit on the number of students that they can manage in each studio. Other programs like Master of Urban Planning, Master of Land Development, probably the MS Architecture, we don't have really caps on the number, but we typically, like in the Master of Urban Planning, we typically are aiming for about 30 students per class that we may admit around 45 to 50, recognizing that some of them are going to go other places or not show up. We often end up with somewhere between 25 and 30. The PhD program is much more selective. We get, I think the last cohort that we did, we had about 120 applicants and we admitted 8. And 6 are coming, which is pretty good yield. Actually, we call that a yield in terms of how many we admit and how many show up. But we fund all of them. And it's PhD programs everywhere are going to be a lot smaller than master's programs. Ours is still one of the largest PhD programs in the country. Most PhD programs, like when I entered my PhD program, there were 5 students in my cohort. And by the time I finished, I was the only one. So there's some attrition that takes place as well. I think we're a more supportive program, and so we have a higher percentage of our PhD students that actually finish than drop out.
And how does time to degree look like?
So the PhD program, we aim for 4 years. We would ideally you would finish a PhD in 4 years. 3 years in a very rare situation. It's hard to finish a PhD in 3 years. I only know one person who's done that. Um,
And that's, your PhD program requires you to have a master's
yes,
first.
yes, our PhD does require that you have a master's, not a master's in anything in particular, but a master's degree. And so we expect it to take about 4 more years. I think on average, ours are taking between 5 and 6 years. And so there's lots of different reasons for that. There's individual reasons. There may be reasons like they're having to work outside of the program. I have a number of students that work for the Texas Transportation Institute or work for other state agencies that are trying to do a PhD on the side, and that can make it take longer as well. Some people have children. I had kids while I was doing my PhD, and so it took me 6 years. But I got a degree and 2 kids out of it. So we all make our trade-offs.
Can I give a little bit of background just in case, I don't know how familiar everyone is with like the idea of a graduate assistantship and what that actually means. So typically it's a part-time job, right? So basically the deal is that you're committed then to 20 hours of work a week is usually, right? So they're considered like, sometimes we'll say 50%, right, is sort of the insider lingo. Meaning that you're going to work 20 hours per week, either they've said most of the positions are either as a TA, meaning you're going to assist with course delivery, right? So that might be helping grade, getting slides ready for Blackboard or Canvas or all of those things, or on a research side where you might be helping with literature review or some data analysis, right? And so that is in addition to your coursework. And the hope is that those things sort of complement each other, right? That, oh, some of the skills that I'm learning in my class, I'm also going to maybe get to perfect or try out, or the thing that I'm a little confused on in my class, I can also ask my supervisor, oh, now I get what we're doing in class, or that they kind of go together. And so that, the reason I wanted to say that is also because the College of Architecture here, we have a policy of a minimum stipend level. So all of our masters, if you get a graduate assistantship, you're admitted in one of our master's programs, the minimum monthly stipend for that is $1,850, so $1,850 a month for basically part-time for 20 hours a week. 20 hours a week. And our minimum doctoral stipend is $2,000. And so that varies, right? So some of our students are making more than that, and some of that then depends on what Dr. Grant said, well, what they all said about grant getting, right? And so if your faculty member has a grant where maybe they had in their budget that they're gonna pay their students $2,100 or $2,200 or something like that, then you might have a little bit higher stipend. But that is our college minimum. And again, not all students are guaranteed an assistantship, but if you get an assistantship, we do have those minimums in place, and that's relatively new in the last 2 years that those minimums have been in place. And we, I'll just also share, you know, the university is talking about how do we keep those minimums as cost of living continues to increase, right? How do we build in some increases over time? And so that's.
And one thing that our center, our research centers have done, or some of our research centers, the 2 that I work with, we have an increasing stipend that goes up when you pass a major milestone. So in your PhD program, first you take your courses, but then you have to do what's called a comprehensive or preliminary exam. And then, so once you pass that successfully, you would get a raise basically in your monthly stipend. And then when you pass your proposal defense, which is the next milestone, then you would get another increase. And so that's a way, one of the ways that we're trying to help people go through a little faster is to incentivize hitting those milestones by giving them an increase.
Okay, I think we should open up for questions from the students. Does anyone want to go first? Anyone has a question? Yes, Annabelle?
I have a question for Landscape Department, but I was wondering, in your decision, how much do you weigh the portfolio work versus like the personal statement or resume?
So our committee, so typically every application is reviewed by at least 2 faculty members. So we look at these as a whole. So we don't really have like a weighted kind of rubric that we score, but we look at everything as a whole. I think both the personal statement and your previous like background and transcript and your portfolio are really important to us. Again, we are looking more for potential and eagerness or passion in this field, more of that than already acquired skills.
As far as funding goes, you guys mentioned there's a full ride university scholarship. I think you guys mentioned just for the PhDs, is it also available for grad school?
It's not just PhD students. There are a couple of university level fellowships that are the full ride. And every application that comes in for our graduate program is reviewed for their potential for being competitive for those scholarships. And we choose our top candidates to put forward for those scholarships. And so you're competing against, not only are you competing kind of within the college, because each program is allocated a few scholarships, but for the ones that go forward outside of the college, you've got to compete against the other people within the college. We have had some success with that, but we're also competing at the university level. And those fellowships, Katie, help me with the value of like.
They range from $30,000 to $40,000. So there, in the last 2 years, the university has created 2 new fellowships that have been $40,000 fellowships, which for us is like, whoa, okay, that's a pretty decent money. And so I also wanted to add on to that. You made me realize I forgot a big element of what an assistantship offers, but what do we even mean by full ride is kind of a hard, people mean different things, and that's where you have to kind of get into the fine print. The other big thing that an assistantship offers is that it often has tuition and fees covered with it, right? So in some cases, it will pay all of your tuition and all of your fees on top of then you get a monthly stipend in exchange for 20 hours of work a week. For doctoral programs, that is the default, right? That you get your tuition and fees for 9 hours of classes, which is considered full-time.
But you'll probably be taking more credit hours than 9. So usually you'll be taking 12 credit hours, but 9 would be paid for because that's what's considered time. But you can't finish this in time if you're only taking 9 credits per semester.
And then for master's students, they might say, well, we can't quite do the tuition plus fees, we'll cover your tuition, but you cover the fees, or some combination, right? And so that's the other, like, when you say full ride, I think for most people in grad school, when they're thinking about full ride, they're thinking tuition, fees, and some sort of assistantship or monthly stipend, right? And so as you are thinking about applying and looking at other universities, that is also the thing to like be an educated consumer of what does this actually cover when you say full ride, right? And that's another reason the $1,000 scholarship is so valuable, because even if you don't get an assistantship, a $1,000 scholarship, one gets you that in-state tuition, right? So that's a big bonus. And then you can still piece together some of those pieces of a full ride, even without all, I guess you could say all 3 elements of it.
And then one other thing I wanted to mention, especially for the international students, you're going to be limited on the amount that you can work beyond the assistantship. Typically, you can't work past the assistantship, but domestic students, American students, you can. And a lot of our master students do, especially master students, do have to work outside in the community or elsewhere on campus in an hourly job, but those things are available. But for international students, you can't do that except unless you have very special permission, and it's actually quite hard to get.
Yes. Anyone else has more questions? Yes.
For those scholarships, you mentioned there are some deadlines. Do we get to like, is there like a table or something that we can look for those deadlines? To go more inside of.
There, so when you're applying, you don't need to do another application for scholarships. Like you will be considered for whatever's available as you're applying. once you're here, there is usually a January deadline, for in-department scholarships. Once you enter, you're gonna have a graduate advisor in architecture. Her name is Monica. In LAUP, her name is Thina. Both of these ladies are your best friend, like seriously. They will help you through everything, but they are the ones, when they send you emails, read them. Because that's where you're gonna have the deadline, and that's where you're gonna find out about all these other opportunities. So yes, we will let you know, and then you write them down on your calendar. Not like anyone writes on their calendar anymore, but yes, you put it in on your calendar as a reminder. And they're very simple applications. They're not overly.
And I'll also add, tomorrow, one of our representatives from our graduate and professional school at the university is gonna be here, so she can talk a little bit more about the landscape of those university-wide fellowships and scholarships. And that's another piece of the puzzle. So there are some that are reserved specifically for incoming first-year students, right? But then the university also has a dissertation fellowship award. So when you get, or a distinguished dissertation, I think, and so when you get to that stage, there's also an opportunity for funding at that time, right? So some of this is, you're wanting to check your email, really is what it boils down to, so that you're aware of those opportunities as they come up, because some of them are, you're eligible at certain stages. There's one university-wide fellowship for students who have had a lot of teaching experience, actually, a lot of time as a TA. If they've been an exceptional TA, there's also a fellowship for those students. So there's, I guess that's sort of the good thing about being at a big university. There's a lot of opportunities, but you do have to pay attention to them, right? There's a lot out there, and it can be sometimes easy to miss. Although we do our best to help.
Justice?
Yes, I'm currently a graduate research assistant, and I work under my professor, and we are currently working on two projects, one under Virginia Workability Action Institute and National Science Foundation. And I guess that's what pays for my fees and my stipend, right, as an international student. I mean, it gets to some point and it's like they encourage graduate students per se that graduate student can also apply for grants or something like that. But in my situation, an opportunity came like that, but because I'm an international student, there was that kind of limitations and I can't apply for that. So I just want to ask that as a PhD student here, is it an exception where there are those opportunities where a graduate student himself can apply for that grant and that comes to the department to serve?
There are some national or different agencies that offer dissertation fellowships. The university also offers dissertation fellowships. And yes, I know NSF has had a dissertation fellowship. I had one from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development when I was a student, yes. And so, yes, you can serve as what we would call a PI or a principal investigator on those types of grants. You can also be written in on grants that your major professor is putting forward. Like I almost always try, actually I spend more effort, and I know Dongying does too, trying to fund students than funding our own selves. Like we're able to fund ourselves in the summer because we're not paid in the summer, but it's more important to me to fund students than it is for me to fund myself. And so we're almost always writing doctoral students, or usually doctoral students, but sometimes master students into our grants. But yes, there are opportunities, and then the Office of Graduate or the Graduate School also has dissertation fellowships. Basically, they're like dissertation completion fellowships. So it's like when you're almost done and you need time to work on it, they'll give you a pretty nice fellowship. And we've had a lot of success with those. We've gotten a lot of our students funded that way. Usually it's supposed to be for like the last year when you really just need to get it done and you need to not have to work and be able to focus. So there are opportunities like that, both externally and internally.
Thank you. I have a question about overlapping courses. I know that the master is required, but maybe the university has some course that I have taken before my master's. You guys take out those courses?
Not typically, only if they haven't been counted towards another degree. So if you have hours that weren't counted towards your degree, it's possible to transfer up to 6 credit, maybe 12, 6 or 12, 12 credits. So that's, which is basically one semester. If they haven't been used towards another degree and they're appropriate for the degree that you're in. We don't do it all, I will say, at the PhD level or the master's level. Yeah. There's one here. I know.
So I have 3 questions. So, a little bit similar to what she just asked. For the master's programs, is there a pathway for master's students to kind of bridge into the PhD program? Or is it simply you complete the master's program and then you would reapply as a PhD student, just at any point?
That's a great question. It's different. It's different from program to program. Do y'all have an MS to PhD?
Yes, I myself had a student started as a Master of Science in Architecture. And during her first year, I mean, she did really well in her courses and everything. And she said, I want to move to the PhD. So we took this to the program director and she wrote a statement and all these things. And we were able to transfer her to the PhD program internally. And she didn't lose any years. I mean, this 1 year already counted towards her PhD year.
In urban planning or urban and regional science, it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. And the professional programs are a little bit different because if you're getting an MUP, a Master of Urban Planning, or an MLA or an MArch, there are specific courses that you must take, and it's a pretty specifically articulated program. It's a little bit more challenging to start to move you into the research courses. However, and that with the MUP, if after your first year in the MUP, you're interested in a PhD, you can talk to one of our faculty or to our graduate advisor about moving into some of the PhD classes. And we do count, like there's some history and theory courses that people take in the master's program that can count towards the PhD program. I have mixed feelings about that. I teach both of those classes. So there's material in the PhD level class that I don't teach to the master's students. So I don't really necessarily want them to skip that course, but we can fill it in other ways. And so we can generally cut a year off if you go from the master's into the PhD program.
And for the MLA, Master of Landscape Architecture program, we recently just have this articulation within the department for people to save a year if they want to go from Master of Landscape Architecture into PhD in urban and regional science. So pretty much you can, during your last year, you can start to taking PhD classes. So then you save a year of your PhD term.
They're kind of informal, though. It's kind of like you need to talk to your faculty and your advisors to make that happen.
There is like in terms of administrative process at the university, yes, there's a process in place where you fill out a form that if that program has said, yes, we want the student in the PhD, rather than like reapplying as a brand new student. So yes, there is a sort of internal administrative process.
Next question.
Similarly related, this one specifically for urban planning and landscape architecture. I know that you said that there isn't much overlap between the Masters of Urban Planning and the other programs. I was wondering if there's any kind of relationship with the landscape program, or if that would kind of look like a case by case kind of after certificate or even.
There are some opportunities, and I'll let Dongying kind of fill in too, but what the difficulty is that a lot of our urban planning students don't have the necessary design background to go into the MLA studios. So there are lecture-based courses that anyone can take. So if it's, we have one that is ecological planning, for example, that is both cross-listed between urban planning and landscape architecture. There are occasionally, I've had a number of students do the open space planning studio, but they have to, like ones that have an architecture degree or a design background, it's easier for them to move into some of the studio-based courses, although it's kind of a faculty has to permit you to enter. Other than that, I think, we have, the landscape architects don't have a lot of electives, so but they're welcome to take planning classes. And the lecture-based landscape architecture classes, the planning students are more than welcome to take.
Occasionally, we've had planning students who work with a landscape architecture professor as their chair for the final project. If what you're interested in aligns better with a landscape architecture professor, you can set up your committee that way.
Do you have a question? Is there the third one?
I was wondering, some of you mentioned that you had your bachelor's, master's, PhD in the same field. I was curious if you think there's an advantage in staying in the same field consistently, or if you think there's an advantage with complementary degrees. So for myself, I have a bachelor's in urban planning and policy, associates in architecture, and I'm kind of interested in both urban planning and landscape architecture at the master's level. So.
You do.
You can, well, actually, yes, you can do it. We have dual degrees. That would take you longer. But it would generally save you a year on what the both of them together would cost. Like MLA is typically 3 years, the MUP is 2 years, but you could do both in 4. There's also, I mean, I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer in terms of if they should all be in the same. I mean, Dongying's are all in landscape architecture. I have a design degree and then 2 planning degrees. I'm glad, I mean, I'm glad I did that. I wouldn't change it, and I doubt that Dongying would change hers necessarily. So it really just depends. I think one thing that we do like to see is that if you're gonna have 3 degrees, they should not all be from the same university. And the reason for that is wanting people with different perspectives. We want you to be exposed to things that challenge you. And particularly if you're in the same discipline in the same university, you have a very narrow view, and we want you to broaden your view. So we usually, even when we have master students who did their undergraduates here and they want to go into our PhD, and we love them and think they're wonderful, I usually advise them to go elsewhere. Because it's better for them. I mean, we would love to have them because they're great students, but it's better for them to be exposed to something different.
I would say that especially for PhD, it's more of a matter of who you work with and what topics you work on than your discipline per se. So in our department, landscape architecture and urban planning, we have professors who do sociology, we have professors who do ecology, we have people like just any field, and a lot of them would feel like their research is closer related to a different college on campus than some colleagues in our department itself, right? So I guess you can get different exposure even if you are in the same discipline. So it's more of a question of what topics you would like to pursue.
And it is a great idea to take classes outside of your degree program, whether it's in the department and taking landscape architecture or architecture classes, or going to a different department on campus, like sociology or ecology or whatever it is. Because like I said, they're thinking about it, the same issues differently. So you expand your mind.
And so it doesn't even let you identify something different that you want to do, or something, it also expands you towards more interesting ideas.
Yes.
We're almost running out of time, so if we have one more question.
I know there was one over here.
So,
Yes.
since you have talked about the PhD is fully covered, but you cover only 9 credits. So, students have to pay them 3 credits to complete PhD in 4 years, and how much is that?
I can't tell you the dollar amount. The best place to look is the Student Business Services website. will tell you the amount per credit hour that you would pay. You have to kind of fill out the form in terms of what college it would be in and that sort of thing. We actually, it changes not infrequently, so I don't have it memorized. It's not a lot, but it may, and you want to definitely have an idea of what that would be, because there will be some costs. Like even when it's a free ride, there's gonna be costs that you weren't prepared for, that you may find that you need to pay. So we have students that are on the edge financially all the time, and we do our very best to help them through it and to introduce them to every possible resource on campus. We even have funds, we call it like a helping hand fund, like if there's some emergency issue, sometimes we have students show up and they don't have a place to live for the first few weeks. They can't afford a hotel. We will try. Those are cases where we will do what we can to help them kind of bridge that gap. But it's not something that you want to plan for. Like you don't want to base your decision making on that necessity. You want to feel confident that you're going to be provided with the financial support between what we can offer you, what you may have, and what your family or other support can provide for you. You want to feel confident that you can pay for this degree.
So Texas, if you're a Texas resident for fall 2026, grad student taking 9 hours in the fall is $7,000 is our tuition. Now, if you're a non-resident or an international student, it's $14,000. And that is why that $1,000 scholarship sounds small, right? $1,000, but that's getting you 50% off basically your tuition, right? So that's that $1,000 scholarship becomes worth $7,000-8,000.
And that's just the tuition.
That's just,
So that's not fees.
Fees.
Yeah, and fees cover all of the other services that are available to you on campus, like healthcare, access to the rec center, parking. Parking is actually on top of it, but I know, this is also a difficult place to live without a car, but it's possible. So keep that in mind. A lot of international students come without cars, and there are certain places you can live and make that work. A lot of them will decide after a year that they need to get a car. So they get a used car, and that's unfortunate, but it's the reality of this place. But yes, I think making sure that you feel confident that you can deal with the financial realities, because it is a very expensive undertaking.
But even I would just mention, even with that figure that Katie just mentioned, still A&M is very affordable state university with a very high quality.
Yes.
And I think also recently the state put a freeze on the tuition, meaning that it's not going to increase for the next 3 years, 2 years. I don't know. Yeah, but most institution, like you pay tuition this year, next year, who knows? Maybe there's a increase, but for A&M, they always try to make it affordable. Compare this to Rice, for example, $60,000 a year.
Well, and that's good. I was just gonna say, what Dr. Ali said, I want to repeat because it's really important. I think our university is one of the best values you can get in the United States in terms of the quality of the education and the cost versus the cost. There are cheaper places, but you're not going to get the same opportunities. We are one of the, if not the cheapest, R1 or top tier 1 research universities in the world, or at least in the United States.
And that's why it's also important when I said like full ride to keep that in mind as well, because tuition and fees at another university, it can be kind of hard to really compare apples to apples. And so when you are thinking about where you might pursue graduate school, you want to really start to dig in and look, okay, if I'm a resident, if I'm international, it can be a little bit complicated. And so ours, tuition.tamu.edu, and you can find, as Dr. Vincent said, you pick, I'm going to be a grad student, which semester, which college, and it has your.
Great, thank you
so much
We have some housekeeping right now, so again, my name is Criseida, social professor. Thank you so much. Thank you. In landscape architecture and urban planning. And we're gonna have a dinner right after this. And the dinner is it's gonna take a little bit because we're gonna take a picture and then we're gonna like walk, but we will be there hopefully before 6. It is more of a buffet style and it's like Mediterranean food. And the idea here is that everybody will sit, we have reserved the space, so we will sit in different tables, but there's faculty members that are coming and joining us from different departments. So they will be there, just take the opportunity to talk to them. And there's also students as well that are joining, so you can ask them about their experiences. Then I would say, just in general, try to share a meal with somebody different. Do not get stuck with the same group of people. So you will have the opportunity to go for lunch then tomorrow and then for dinner. Just make sure that you sit with different people. And we have, at least for this first night, we have some table topics. And I actually brought some little cards that I will be giving to the tables, and these are the table topics. So it's like you're going to say, what's your name? Are you a prospective student, a core student or faculty, and which program you're aspiring to get into? And how did you get into your field, and what keeps you interested in the field, right? So, and this is for everyone at the table. And I love this question also because it's very good to try to understand people's interests. So what does a good day look like for you, both professionally and personally as well? Again, every time that you go to any of these lunches, just make sure that you're like talking and networking. The other thing is that where we are going, at least I see it as our downtown. It's like Northgate because we don't have a downtown. Like everything, it is the college. And there's a lot of us. There's like 78,000 students, right? And College Station is 200,000 students. A lot of those are faculty and staff, and their spouses and kids, and so on. So it is a college town. So basically, the area that you will go is a place that a lot of students love because it's only like 14 minutes away. And basically it's just like a new urbanist development, housing, right? So mixed use and all that. So for those of you interested in planning, this is it, you know, or like what to see. Actually, our city hall is like just like across, and there's just one building in there. However, I like to say that if you come here to College Station, if you love walkability, you can definitely find good places to walk and to bike and so on. So I will be leading people into the walking, but there's going to be like some vans available.
Yeah, Megan and I will be driving again.
Yes, and then you're going here, and you're going to go over there, right? Just
Yeah, we'll leave that where we dropped you off.
Right, so that's like the option for the vans, and which we will do that, like for, I think that we have like a live poll, make sure that you fill that out in the group meeting. That for tomorrow, some of you will be like, I saw 8 people walking and 7 that are going in the golf rides, golf cart rides. So again, it's like we have those options as well. Make sure that you fill out because I don't know how many golf courses we have.
Yeah.
Plan
Right now it's 2, so 8 stops.
Okay, very good. So basically, like our dinner will be 6, and let's say until 7. So we will give you some time to explore. So about 7 will be like go around and walk. However, at 7:30, you need to be in the van because we are going to leave. And then if you still want to stay there and explore with others, you can do so. Know that, it's the hotel is like 1.1 miles, from where we're going. So it will be about 26-minute walk, or you can take, an Uber, if you want to. But again, we want you to take advantages, but you want to keep, exploring. About tomorrow, so tomorrow, the breakfast will be at the hotel. And then there's I know that some of you are in college station, so you will not be having breakfast with us. When you come here, we will always have, your snacks and your soda. Sorry, no coffee, so bring your own coffee. But the breakfast, again, it is in the hotel. The hotel starts their breakfast at 6 a.m. That's for the overachievers, you know, get to there's also a gym, so you guys could do that. If you want to be more relaxed, I recommend you to go and get some breakfast at 7:15, 7:30, because we will be in the lobby and there's like two, it's a Kevin and Dave, so it's not the same people. Don't think that they're not us, they are. Right? So white bands. Okay. As for Kevin and Dave, so they will take you out. In all of this, we will always be communicating in, GroupMe, of course. So like, I think that, most of you are in GroupMe, but not all of you. So make sure that you scan this, and you should also have received a text message from me, just saying, please join GroupMe, because this is kind of like how we're going to be, communicating. And then, right now, like, you need to take all your stuff, okay? So, not just yet, because we're going to do a picture in a minute, but, you will not leave anything here. We will go in the van, so we're walking. And then tomorrow you can bring your laptop, notebook, remember your water bottles. Remember your packages, everything like the agenda is in the package, as well as like new contact information and who's who, and as well as like other people that we will be meeting, to all of this. And I think like Katie already mentioned, we will be walking, so wear, comfortable, shoes. And the welcome will be here in this, same room. Actually, this is our main event space, right? So, although always check the calendar, but this will be the room that we are gonna be. You need to see the agenda, just in a quick recap. This is a whole slide, where you can find, everything, but again, your agenda is in the packet. So for tomorrow, this is what we are doing. We're doing a welcome, a facilities tour at 9:15. At 10:30, we have a grad school, session, and then, we're gonna have lunch. And on the way to lunch and also coming back, we will be doing, showing you important places, right? And buildings, and all that. And then at 2, we have a student, panel, and at 3, research centers. Then we are gonna have breakouts for each, just like each, program. So like the masters in, or this landscape architecture and architecture, and so on. The only one I think is Alejandro, because you're in construction, right? So you're the only one that will not have a breakout groups, but we will connect you tonight with someone, so you can have, you know, that, one-on-one. Then we're gonna have fun, because we always have to have fun. And, we're going to eat some Mexican food in downtown, Brian. And I will leave it at that. You have the rest of the agenda. So now we are going to take, a picture. But I wanted to just like show you how to do this, which is like vegan. Yeah, and then this is kind of the close up, yes, but it's also grabbing a frog and squeezing it. I didn't know that, but that's the story. So there's, we love football here, right? We do the midnight yell, which is like we practice our yells before the game, happens on the next, day. and it's like during midnight, and it's a lot of fun. So there was like this guy painting down. So this is class this is in the 1930s. He just grabbed the frogs because we were fighting with TCU horned frogs. So he said, give it. I don't know what that means.
A gig is it like a spear
Like
that
a
people
spear.
who hunt frogs evidently use. And so this was like the gesture of the spear. Is the lore.
All right. So what we can say, just thumbs up. So just kind of like we're gonna like come up here and we'll go to the picture here. I think
Yeah,
right
Sarah's here.
Yeah, and then but you guys do the gig, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, leave your box there. Yeah, and then just come here. We'll go to the picture here. Okay. Just, yeah.
Real life at the front of the screen. Stand in front of the mirror.
Should I move
Your
the
picture.
Yeah, or you want some people moving pictures?
I mean, we can do the shirt back.
We'll move the seat back. All right, so tall people in the back, right? You know where to go. And then short people in the front.
Step up.
Yeah, but you're kind of like, it's here more, right? Maybe just 3 lines, right? And then the 3 lines.
We did, imagine you're in the van.
Yeah. Yeah.
Squeeze more, like be no wider than the screen.
Maybe some people can hold down like this.
Yeah,
we run here. Oh, think you, come here. Down up there, yeah. I think that's nice. Yes. More people. With goodies, and we go with goodies.
Well, yeah, we gotta work out this side a little bit.
Squeeze, yeah, all right. This is looking better.
Squeeze them like this.
And then remember to be in the window.
Plump a little bit more.
Yeah.
Fill the gap as many.
Put your face in the windows, okay? Everybody, and here this.
Your faces, fantastic.
All
All
right.
right, where's your giggles?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, awesome. You all hear me? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, you missed the come on, sing a little bit. Okay. All right, one more.
I have good knees.
I don't have good ears, but I'm. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Cheese.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So for those that are watching, come with me and then with closer in the back. And get your stuff.
Don't make it.